What is up, everybody, man? Thank you guys for jumping into another episode of Expert Mentors Live. We have the one and only Cuz.
What's up?
You know, for me, just it seems like it was yesterday, but I remember, jumping into the coaching side of things with the guys, and the conversation with me and Jay coming out of Aspen, the very first conversation, and always kind of reflect back on it. What are we, 10th, 11th, 12th year of coaching for me now. And, I can't thank you and Wally enough for laying the foundation for me and being there as the guiding guardrails and feedback. And I know staying in the coaching side of things as long as I have wouldn't be possible without Wally and without yourself. So every time I get an opportunity, I want to say thank you.
Well, I appreciate that. And every time I hear you say that, I just have to turn it back and say, if it wasn't for Jay Kinder and Michael Reese being so gracious and inviting me into the fold back when I just really started as the productivity coach at the KW Frisco office here in the Dallas area, we wouldn't be sitting across each other. If you look at the way that we all got here, John, it's just a series of miracles, one after another, and just very grateful. And there are some people that God puts in front of you and in your life that He intends to be there, and He does it so that it'll change your life forever. And that's how I feel about our family from NAEA and the whole group, and you and just all the great associates and friends that we have now in Honey Badgers and at eXp. I'll tell you, I never thought that we could grow as a family the way that we have in the past 6 years, but this has really been just an incredible experience. And you talk about lives changed, man, it is unbelievable what we've been able to help people do. And that's what's exciting. And that's why when I had the opportunity to jump back on your show here, I said in a heartbeat, because this guy, that's all he does for a living is go out and change lives.
I love that. I appreciate that so much. And, just thinking through all of the milestones along the way, and, just even thinking back to, Fort Lauderdale, in 2017, I mean, there were 400 people there. And I remember, walking into the awards, which was the night before. It was the very first night. We landed, we walk in, and it's like, is this an NAEA event? Like, really just everybody just going across the stage and the awards. And
yeah.
like, wow, this feels like family. And then being able to be in those meetings the next day and never forget sitting there across from Glenn and Jason, kind of sharing the vision. And I think that's where a lot of things kind of get lost for a lot of people, is that they don't take the time to step back and get the vision for their business and the vision for their life. And they end up just making, reactive decisions without purpose, without a direction, and being able to sit there and listen to that. And, the subsequent year at shareholders with Glenn giving the updates, and I'm texting Kinder, and I'm like, this dude is executing on the vision better than I've ever seen. And he goes, I know, it's unbelievable. And he hasn't wavered from it, and holds true to the values of the organization and holds true to the vision. And I think a lot of questions I have for you today, just because, I mean, you are like one of the deepest, most thoughtful wealth of information in anything, but really as it comes on the real estate side of things and the business and the structure and the things moving forward. And maybe we start right there, right? And, we see kind of a lot of changes. I remember, you and I, connected in December at boot camp. Mm-hmm. And we were just talking about how interesting this year was going to be. And here we are at the halfway point of the year, and it's been pretty damn interesting.
The market itself, I never would have predicted this at all. I don't think anybody saw it coming. But it just goes to show that the train hurts just as much when it hits you from behind as when it hits you head on. And you can always be assured there's going to be a train in the tunnel, right? So Zig said you're either going into a storm, or you're in a storm, or you're coming out of a storm, but you just got to learn how to dance in the rain. And that's kind of how our business is. We don't really have any way to know with 100% certainty where it's going and what's happening. But the fact of the matter is that no matter what happens in the market, because you recall that we met back in, I think it was 2008, and I bet that probably 3/4 of the people listening to this call today were not in the real estate business in 2008. But for those of you who were not, I will tell you that it dwarfs in terms of the depth and just the carnage. 2008 was like World War III. I mean, it really there was an excess of inventory on the market. There was so much fraud going on, and so many bad things, systemic problems in lending, people cheating, subprime loans, all the crap that we've gotten out of the system now. But for those of you who haven't gone through a cycle like we're going through now, it's temporary. All pain in the world is temporary. There's nothing that's permanent. Life is not permanent. And it's just like people think that the real estate market's never going to stop going up. Yes, it is. It's going to go down. It will go down again. And nothing is certain except change. And that's it, John. So I think the message here really, if I could say one thing that I've learned in my 38 years in the business, is quit paying attention to the market and start paying attention to what you're doing every day.
Yeah.
And don't get lost in, like everybody else does, in the headlines. The only headlines you need to worry about are the ones that you're writing yourself.
I love that. I love that. And, with the change, there's always opportunity. And so no matter what the market's doing, Kinder, went all in on the short sale game, and he really became, the go-to in our market for anything and everything short sale, to the point of, he was collecting checks on the front end just so he could, pay the bills and keep the lights on.
Beautiful. Yes.
And so there's always a twist and opportunity. For me, I latched on to a builder, the new builder that was coming into the market, and I just became his, his right hand. List it, sold, open house, whatever you want me to do, generate leads, everything, to that, to be able to survive. But that worked for me. But I think that's, to your whole point, is that no matter the season, no matter what's going on, no matter the change, there is always an opportunity if you're out of the headlines. And I love that. The only headlines you need to be paying attention to are writing are the ones that you're writing, and being able to pay attention to that. And, we talked back in December about the changes ahead. And I think one of the things that we've seen is just kind of the evolution. I mean, you even look back in 07, 08, just even the evolution there. I mean, when did the Red Book come out? 5, 6?
The Old Testament. Yes.
The Old Testament.
Right.
Yeah. So, I mean, you see that the evolution of the teams there, and the evolution, and kind of looking where we're at and in the opportunity in the season we're in. I mean, where are you seeing? Because I mean, nobody has the crystal ball. However, your crystal ball is pretty on point. And so kind of where are you seeing kind of the evolution and the opportunity in the season, kind of where we're at moving forward into the future?
Yeah, I see the real opportunities in real estate in scaling. I think that the days of the Lone Ranger are coming to a quiet end. And I really see the benefit now in the way that modern teams are structured more as teamerages, right? We call them, it's like a combination of a brokerage and a team, a little bit. And it really frees the agent up and provides a clear-cut path to having their own team and their own perhaps brokerage. And what I mean by that is, and I jokingly call the Red Book the Old Testament, because John, you recall back in those days, the only ways that an agent could move up was to move out. I recall talking with Lars Hedenborg before he came over to eXp, bless his heart.
He fought long and hard, didn't he?
Boy, he was a tough coconut. Thank you, John, Mikish, and AJ. That was a hard fought battle. But I'll tell you what, I asked him, he'd been at Remax. We started, Lars started with us back about that time. And I worked with him for a little bit. And he left, started his own wonderful, real estate B school coaching company. And I asked him about his team. He had partnered. They were the #1 team in Charlotte. This is after he started with a Remax franchise that basically he bought just for his team. And then he joined Thomas over at Keller Williams. And together he wanted to get out of the business and let Thomas run it. But the question that I asked him was, in the 10 years that I've known you, how many buyer agents have you trained up to really high level through your hiring process and training processes? And he said about 75. And then I followed that question with, and how many do you currently have on your team? And he said 3.
Yeah.
And you're the #1 team in Charlotte. Yep. Those are productive dudes, boy. 40, 50 deals a piece these guys are doing. And then I said, of the 72 buyer agents who have left in that 10 years, how many of those are you still collecting revenue on and still getting paid for the hard work that you poured into them to make them great agents?
Yeah.
And it's like the phone got quiet for a minute. Maybe that just hit him right in the old sphincter. And so he said, admittedly, none. And I said, if I could show you a model where if you had done the exact same thing over the last 10 years, but instead of those 72 buyer agents who left you, most of them now were your partners in business and gladly paying you to be associated with you. Is that a model that you would be interested in? And of course, he said no, right? Because he just had the blinders up, bless his heart. But anyway, that really is what I think has changed, is that now we're able to benefit by helping other people become successful, not just at a transaction level, but at a life level. And because of revenue share and stock in a publicly traded company, our interests are aligned. I mean, I tell people, John, all the time that this really is like the Three Musketeers on steroids. I mean, it truly, really is all for one and one for all. And when somebody becomes a part of our family, we are as committed to them as any other broker, associate, you name it, because we all benefit from working, collaborating. Here's one way that I try to explain it to some people that aren't familiar with our model. It's pretty simple. I said, back at Keller Williams or any other big box brokerage, or really any brokerage, you're in competition with everybody in that office. And it's unlikely that the top producer is going to show you all their cards. Very unlikely, because they don't want you doing the same thing that they're doing. But when you get to a level like what we have here at eXp, we actually go from competing against each other to collaborating with each other. And that, once you can get your head wrapped around that and understand how powerful that is, then you can begin to understand how much leverage there is over here. If you're an entrepreneur and growth minded, there is only one place that you should be, and it's here. This platform was built by entrepreneurs for entrepreneurs. Most agents still have a job selling real estate. They don't have a real estate business. But if you have vision and you want to own a real estate business, you can build anything that you can dream here, whether it's multi-state, whether it's you want to get out of business. eXp has a solution for darn near every problem that we've been trying to solve since Fred Flintstone and Barney Rubble were in the business.
Yeah. Yeah. And, you open some wounds, thinking about all the people coached up, and, that's always been, in kind of that traditional team model, right? The flaw was, your talent came out the top, and being able to have a place for them to land. And, you hit on kind of a couple things, right? The team broker kind of come together, but you said, growth minded, but also the opportunity in the future is to scale. Can you kind of articulate the difference between grow and scale? Because I think a lot of people kind of get that confused in what you mean by that.
Yeah. So growth and scaling are kind of related, and they're kind of two different things. Growth for the sake of growth, I mean, you've got to have a clear vision and a clear mission. I know that when I go into a listing appointment, that if I've got an independent agent on the other end competing for the listing, or if it's somebody new right out of real estate school, I'm going to get that listing almost 100% of the time.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not just because I'm the old guy that's been doing this a long time. The reason is because I have a team and I have scaled. And it's like, I would never forget the David and Goliath audio that Kender cut one time about how to go in and, if you're an independent agent and slay Goliath. Well, unfortunately, Goliath is the better model right now, for the simple reason that you can become part of something bigger. You know what? They say that a fish will only grow to the size of their tank. And if you put a goldfish in a small, half-gallon fish tank, they're only going to get so big. But if you put them in a koi pond or a 50-gallon aquarium, they're going to grow much bigger. And so if, for people, for example, who are with an indie broker, God bless them. I was an indie broker. I love the idea. That used to be the that
was it.
That's used to be the thing, right? I mean, that's
what we did in NAEA Mastermind, right? We took people independent. I mean, that's what we did.
Yeah. But, the reality is that I don't have the leverage to scale, because if I have agents who want to be in 3 states, that means I've got to go have a broker in each state that they want to do business in. And the cost of growing into every state and every province, how about the cost to grow globally? Do you see? There's a lot of copycats that are following eXp with a better model. Well, we'll see. All I can tell you is that I know that my rev share checks are going to cash, okay, for a long, long time. These other companies, and that really is my background, John. I have an MBA from Rice and worked on Wall Street. So I know a little bit about P&Ls and capital formation and that kind of thing. And we've got some crazy competitors out there that have a relatively short runway and may not even be around by the end of the year. And then we've got a competitor that's out there that's bankrolled by a billionaire that made a bunch of money in the mortgage market. And, I hate to say this, and I'm not trying to disparage or be a predictor of bad things to happen, but I think reality is going to set in when they see that they can't continue to lose money for the sake of growth and have to pour either more money into it or go out and raise capital. It doesn't happen. eXp has never taken on any long-term debt. Glenn bootstrapped this company up from the ground. And that's what is fascinating about this. You look at Real and some of these other companies, the big public companies like Anywhere, they have so much debt, it's crazy. You know what Coldwell Banker is doing right now to raise fees? Agents are flying out of there. Compass lost $150 million in the first quarter of this year.
Mm.
Good God. I mean, that's how do you lose 150 million? I don't know, but they managed to do it. And yet people still think that, that's a solid, secure place to, to be. Well, and, okay, great, because you're hung up there. The clawbacks in your ICA say you can't leave for another 3 years because you just took down another 100,000 because you don't know how to manage your freaking business. Okay, that kind of a deal. But back to your question, growth and scale. You've got to have, once that we really understood and did the social proof for collaboration, which is the model that I know that NAEA and Mike and Jay Abraham, I mean, that was the whole, we just couldn't quite get it dialed in like Glenn got it dialed in. But this model has exponentially created more power just through the model itself and the people that are involved in it than you could ever get close to. I mean, this is like being in a Toyota Corolla parked next to a McLaren, right? I mean, if you're an independent broker, you don't have the benefit of the smartest people in all the markets in the United States to draw on.
Yeah.
You don't have the benefit of them going in and providing training for your people. You're limited to whatever's in your head, right? And if you're lucky, you might get somebody to come in from out of town to be an expert from time to time and be a guest on your, training. But the reality is that you're not going to be able to help somebody go from Sherman, Texas to Sherman, Arkansas, Sherman, Florida, Sherman, New York, Sherman, California, if that's what they want to do, because you just don't have the resources. So you can grow as an independent broker, but you can't scale, right? You can grow, you can show a lot of growth in terms of we're doing more transactions, we're running faster, but we're just doing it in a couple of zip codes, right? Mm-hmm. Scale is when you can literally have agents anywhere in North America or the globe now and have them contributing to your legacy through revenue share. That is the power that people just don't understand. A.L. Williams, who started Primerica, A.L. Williams Insurance, he was a founder, started Primerica, sold it for billions of dollars to Smith Barney, Primerica, that whole group. Used to say that it's about multiplication. I'm going to take it a step further, and I'm going to say it's about exponential growth, not multiplicative growth.
Right.
2 + 2 = 4. That's arithmetic. 3 × 3 = 9. That's geometric. Geometric. I'm sorry. Well, multiplying, whatever that is, multiplying. It's not geometric. But exponential growth is 3 to the 3rd power. That's 27. Okay. And that's what you get, that you can't create that leverage in an independent model, in a small model. You're going to get crushed. And so the reason why I say that the trend is going to be more toward large teams that are operated as teamerages, because essentially, if I'm a broker, I can offload all the risk to eXp. And if I'm really good at coaching and training, then I can just focus on that. And I can just get this team to go like this and grow and not have to worry about, oh crap, they want to open in Florida. I got to go find somebody to be a broker over there. Right. And do that. So if you're watching this and your strength is really coaching and training and leading people, the last thing you need to do is to be focused on the structure and all of the messy part of making the sausage, the broker part, the E&O, the suits, all of the regulations you got to deal with, all of that stuff. That's not where you need to be focused. Yeah. You need to be focused on leaders developing leaders. How many times do we use that phrase, John? eXp is about leaders developing leaders. Yeah. Right?
It is. And it's also an ecosystem and environment, and that's not possible unless you're able to, lead yourself first. right? And it provides to where, it's the best oxygen mask in the industry. There are some copycat things, and this kind of full circle to the beginning of the conversation of like, I know the vision of eXp. I know the vision of Glenn. And I can go back to the core values. I can go back to why, sustainability is one of the core values at eXp, and everything they do to make sure that the company stays, sustainable, right? Every decision is based through. And I think that's where a lot of people they don't even know, like, what is the vision? Well, vision is core values, purpose, and what's the goal? And, ask your leaders of that organization, like, what is the vision for this company? And it's like you said, I think, Glenn being a real estate agent in the beginning, knowing how to bootstrap, because we've all had to do that, right? We've all had to go through those, the pains and the blood, sweat, tears of bootstrapping, figuring things out. Like, if this deal don't close, how do I make payroll? Like, if you've been in the game long enough and you've tried to build a team and go through it, you've felt that. And I think when you look at the copycats and the other out there, that are trying to play the game, I mean, how many of them have been in the trenches selling houses? How many of them bootstrapped that? How many of them worried about how, if I don't close this deal, I can't pay my assistant this week? And I think that has kind of sharpened that. And so that's what I always come back to. It's like, you look at the copycats, like, what's the vision? I mean, this was our conversation in December. It's like, well, what's their goal? What's the vision? What are they trying to do? And then you can, start to learn more about the decisions they're trying to make.
And you know what, though? I mean, that would work, but there's one problem. And that is eXp is always going to where the puck is.
Mm-hmm.
And if we didn't ask the right questions as leaders, and if Glenn and the leadership didn't have us sailing into the wind like we should be, and pivoting when the wind changes, there could be an opportunity for copycats to come in. I mean, if you look back since 1955, I think 485 of the Fortune 500 companies that were around in 1955 today are gone. And it's because they didn't ask the right questions. Look at Eastman Kodak and Polaroid. Now, Polaroid's making a comeback. I can't believe kids are willing to pay $2. In fact, look, I've even got them here. My daughter has one of those little Kodak things, right? And I'm going like, wait a minute, your phone takes freaking unbelievable pictures, and now you're going to spend $2 on these things, and they fade, and but oh, Dad, but it's so cool. Who would have guessed that Polaroid would be making a comeback? They got their ass kicked, right? Because they got stuck in the old school. They weren't asking the right questions. But I will say this, when Glenn sees if there was a mistake or a pivot that should have been made, he will admit it, swallow it, and go on and do the right thing to get it back on track. I mean, this whole thing about reducing the number of FLQAs, I don't think people really understand the impact of that. I read some idiot say it just makes the richer rich over at eXp and all this kind of stuff. Okay. I am so tired of people that that when they open their mouth, you just know it's going to be vomit that's going to be coming out. But it happens. We have a target on our back now because everybody's gunning for us. I remember I think is at 9,000 agents. I remember how tough it was going from 9 to 25,000. And I mean, they've got enough money maybe to get them till the end of the year. You think raising money in this kind of a market is going to be possible in real estate? I don't know how it's going to be done, but they're done. And their ownership over there is Israeli hedge funds, and those people don't have long-term interest. Glenn is in this company forever. Glenn is here. He's still the biggest shareholder. So, there's just a lot of differences, and I'm not trying to disparage. I'm just stating facts. I'm just saying, look, agents will spend more time, John, planning their next vacation than they do really investigating and looking under the hood at some of these brokerages that they're going to go try to do a business with and set up a business. I'm like, oh my God, how can you be so ignorant when it comes to doing your homework? But I guess it's just the nature of the people that the real estate business attracts. They're not always coming from, a strong business background. So
No, they're not, and they they're grasping, right? We know that with real estate agents, they're typically grasping for, like you said, the next commission check. They're so short sighted. They're not making decisions long term. They just don't have filters to run it through. And so you said, asking the right questions. What are some of the questions that real estate agents need to constantly be asking, not only of themselves, but of the people they're around, the leadership? Like, what are those questions that they need to be asking and thinking about?
Well, I think you nailed it. And if somebody doesn't have an original statement, like, and they say, "Oh, we're going to be better at EXP than EXP is," well, okay, good luck. I mean, one thing you don't want to do is go try to be better than King Kong, okay? Because the King Kong is at the top of the mountain. Pick somebody easier you want to try to knock off. And I say that because there are some of these companies out there are really lack in vision and in purpose. Like you said earlier, John, you nailed it. They are copycats. They're not original, and the original was built. And just if you look at the path of this company, for 8 years it took Glenn to pivot and get this thing in a position where once he got the right people involved, he could scale it faster than any real estate. Now there's other companies saying, "Oh, we're growing faster than," you know what, when you start at zero and you get one person, that's a infinite gain. Okay. When you go from 1 to 2, that's 100% gain. But when you get up to the size that we are, we can't, bring on 88,000 people every year, especially in a down market like this. We're holding up very well. What I'm more impressed with is, and this is what agents ought to really start thinking about, is read Michael Del Preti's research. Read the piece that he just put out. Jay talks about it. I've been following Michael for a long time. I hate to say that we're friends. We're not really friends, but we email each other back and forth from time to time. And this guy does more good critical research on the brokerage business than anybody else out there. And he's an independent third party. He's on faculty at University of Colorado Boulder. He got his teeth cut covering iBuyers and writing about them. But I will tell you that his analysis of, like, for example, the cost per transaction of all of the top brokerages, looking at things even just breaking down the profitability in that first quarter. eXp was the only publicly traded company that made money in the first quarter of 2023, period. There was no other. I mean, everybody else was so deep in the mud, it was crazy. Compass 150 anywhere lost 100 million. I mean, it was just it stank. And so if you're a little company like Real and you lose $100,000, well, eXp is 10 times the size of Real. That would be like eXp losing $1 million. Okay, I mean, you've got to understand, people will create their own narrative around their own numbers, just like Democrats and Republicans, man. They're going to tell you their side of the story, and that's it. And if you won't sit down and do your own due diligence, if you won't really take the time, then I'm sorry, but you deserve what you get.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're going to listen to some, solar panel salesman convince you that solar panels are the way to go and you put them on your house, you're stuck with them. Okay. That's your fault, nobody else's.
Yeah. It's getting to the truth, right? It's getting to, the facts, and not putting your interpretation of the math on the way you you want to bend it to that narrative. But it's just math. And I mean, that's just what business is. Business is just math. What is the math telling us? And like you said, where's the runway? And how long can you hold your breath? And I know this company and kind of the position it's gotten itself into can hold its breath for a long time.
Well, and the good news is that because of our leadership, I mean, our sales numbers are growing like crazy. I mean, my revenue share, I'm setting records right now. I mean, it is, I never would have thought in this market with interest rates at 7% and sales down 50%, that we would still see an increase in rev share, but it's continuing to go up. And oh my gosh, some of our competitors are requiring that in order to be eligible for rev share, you have to continue to sell. How do you want to be 80 years old and out schlepping snotty-nosed kids around on the back of your car, showing the parents houses, and they bitch about, there was a cracked window, and there's multiple offers on, and you have to put up with that crap until you're 80, 90 years old. How many of you out there watching this have ever been to a realtor's retirement party? Anybody? Come on. The only place you're going to see that is at eXp. It's the only place possible because of revenue share. And it's like, you don't have to be actively selling at eXp in order to continue to receive revenue share. But Real and LPT and some of these others, that's their deal. They set their revenue share up that way, saying it was better for the agents. I don't know how it is in that sense, but I'm sure they're going to find something that they don't like. They were saying, like I said earlier, that lowering the FLQAs for level 7 from 40 to 30 was just making the rich get richer. I mean, no, it's not. It's rewarding the people who are working to build this company. Nobody's entitled here. I guarantee you, there's no people I know who hustle harder than Brent Gove and Gene Frederick and Jay Kinder and Mike Reese and Al State.
And yourself.
I'm 60. I'll be 65 in January. You think I'm looking at working? No, I'm enjoying the heck out of this. This is more fun than I've had in real estate ever. But we're not sitting on our asses just because we drive nice cars and stay in nice hotels and maybe live in Puerto Rico. We worked our asses off to get here. And not just since we've been here, but it's a culmination of all the experience and relationships we built over the years that we bring to the table.
Because kind of, I want to kind of shift and give some thought to these agents. Like you said, individuals coming to a quiet end, need to create some leverage around yourself. Those that are kind of, hey, I like my small team, but hey, the future is the bigger massive teams, and even the teams within the teams, and just thinking through kind of, we're on a hell of a platform with eXp to build this team brokerage feel within this platform that is a brokerage, but I think more so as a springboard, a foundation to build on than build from, right? We're building on this, and we're building whatever we want to build, and tying back to the individual's vision, but kind of give some ideas of kind of what you're seeing, and those to be kind of thinking about, hey, Cliff, I just want to stay small, just me, I'm not trying to build a massive team, or those kind of caught in the middle. Hey, do I go back small or do I go big with this? Like, kind of give some things that you're seeing in the trends, and kind of where we see the evolution of this team brokerage hybrid kind of moving.
Yeah. I think, again, whether you're leading or whether you're a member on a team, it's a lot different than it used to be, at least the way I run my team. And I know people get into real estate for different reasons.
Mm-hmm.
And if we don't accept that and acknowledge that and serve them, because here's the thing, who are the customers? Who are my customers? They're not people buying and selling houses.
No.
It's the people that are going out, getting up on a July 4th and missing their family to go out and show houses. Those people are my people. They're my customers.
Mm-hmm.
And if you forget that, and if you don't take care of the people on your team and serve them at their point of need, not just your point of need, but serve them ask the customers what they want, for God's sake. Ask your agents what they want, instead of trying to force feed them what you think they need. Not everybody's cut out to be a 45 unit a year buyer's agent. Okay.
No.
That works fucking, excuse my French, Zillow leads, for God's sake. Okay. It's just not the case. I just had a great interview with Gary and Linda And Gary was talking about how when he started with us, he did 9 million his first year, but they were all Zillow leads. And so we severed our relationship with Zillow at the end of last year. And Gary was without leads. So he had to reinvent himself. And his wife got into a car wreck. He made no money in January. But so far this year, they've got 17 million closed and 3 million that closed this week. So that's 20 million. So is it possible? Are they, just because you're having success at a certain level, can life be better if you just look at it through a different lens? Yeah. And that's what a good coach and a good mentor can help you see. Somebody who's been there can help refresh you and open your eyes. And if you're the guy at the independent brokerage that everybody relies on, I hate to say this, but not one person has a monopoly on all the good ideas. You've got to proximity is everything. You've got to get around people who are better than you.
Yeah. 100%. That goes back to what you were saying, in the independent, indie space. I mean, you're usually on an island. And I think that's where, plugging into an ecosystem of people that are financially aligned, right? I keep coming back to this so much, right? Like compensation drives behavior. They're making decisions based upon the compensation structure of wherever they're at and whatever they're doing. And it can be in any industry. They behave a certain way. We went to Sphere Rocket Mastermind, spoke for Justin's event last week, Justin and Joel's event in Nashville last week, and just going through and looking at the service in there, right? In very few you'll find exceptional. Most of the time it's just barely getting by. And a couple of people were getting kind of frustrated, and I'm like, well, you have to step back and you have to think, well, how are they being compensated? I said, that's driving their behavior. And, listening to, coming out of Dean, you remember Dean Miller was there, and Dean was, out of New York. He had the restaurant. He's all connected in the restaurant business, still selling real estate, has a marketing company. Mm-hmm. And I asked him a question because he was doing some stuff going into he had started kind of the Kyle Whistle model going into pandemic, shut him down. So what he did is he started doing the takeout, and then he would just do the show himself of him tasting the food and promoting the food. And he ended up, really saving some of the restaurants. He said, but the biggest thing out of New York that killed the restaurants, it wasn't that surviving the takeout. It's when they were able to open back up, they couldn't get the help to keep the doors open. And so it goes back to, how are they compensated? What's the compensation structure? And so I think kind of looking at that kind of thought process of the agents, but you nailed something there a second ago when we were talking about the evolution of the teams. And what really hits home, and it's just a reminder, right? There's really good leadership out there, but that differentiator is when you as a leader know what the desires of your people are.
Exactly.
What makes them tick. And like, if anybody takes anything away from this and being able to build and surround yourself with other agents, what are their desires? What are their goals? And then, is it then creating an environment that supports that growth? Like even with your team, I mean, what are you up to? Almost 100 agents within your team now?
But here's the thing. When I have somebody who wants to join my team and we're further down in the conversation, I look at him, John, and I say, look, this is a 2-year MBA in real estate. I'm going to teach you everything I possibly can and know about this business, including how to lead generate yourself. I'm going to help you avoid those no money Novembers. We hate skinny kids and bare Christmas trees around here. So I'm going to help you with leads, and I'll teach you how to cut your teeth, how to convert them. And then I'll teach you how to generate them yourself. So you don't have to be dependent on Zillow or OpCity or some of these other disasters that it's just like crack cocaine. You get on them and you can't get off of them. And it's that pay later stuff that's like, that's like buying a car from the lot where you got to take them a payment twice a month or once a week. Okay. You've got to learn how to lead generate and, develop a business that's vertically integrated. You cannot be working for the man who has no investment in your business, yet takes 35% of it. Okay.
Yeah.
It's not, that's not an efficient way to build a business. So we're going to teach you all of that. And that's something that you're not going to get at an independent brokerage. I mean, just the fact that we can deliver such a different value stack for somebody that really wants to grow and become a partner. Trammell Crow started revenue share back in the 80s here in Dallas. Gary Keller was going to adopt that model, couldn't make it work in a franchise model. That's why when Glenn came up with eXp with one broker, it revolutionized and it immediately drew the line in the sand so that franchises would not be able to compete with us, because the franchise model won't work. The franchisees compete with each other. They don't collaborate. It's like McDonald's franchise owners. They compete over turf and territory, and so do Keller Williams franchise owners. It's not the same as having one brokerage, one stock, and revenue share coming in from everywhere. You see what I'm saying, John?
I do. Yeah.
So that was a key differentiator.
Right.
That allowed eXp's model. Once we had the social proof and people came over in here and said, hey, you know what? It's also a better place to sell real estate. I got access to this, and this. And I don't have to listen to my OP. I'm not, I don't have to depend on culture and profit share. It's never paid my bills, right? Never has. So now I've got culture and rev share. I got a better culture. I got collaboration over here, right?
Some of the best agents on the planet.
With some of the best on the planet, yeah.
That's why production is at the highest of the companies out there, right?
Oh my God, people say they don't say, well, eXp, we don't sell real estate. They just recruit. That's all they do is recruit. Bullshit. I mean, you look at our output per agent, we're number 2, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
It's remarkable. And it goes back to, my whole rant with the compensation, right? And, that's really what rev share is. It was an opportunity to financially align all of the agents within the organization.
Amen. That's it. Yeah.
And so that's where you have to look. And that's where, Glenn's, brilliance is understanding that drives everything. That drives, opening up the curtain to be like, there ain't no secrets. Here you go. Right. And really what this whole, conversation, these episodes, this entire Expert Mentor series was built on. And, it started with Kyle Whistle and Dan Beer coming to me, Al, and Jay saying, hey, we've got so many amazing rock stars that are Honey Badger Nation that just want to pour in and give back. Can we do something? And that's where we're at, 200 and something episodes later and still rolling. And, it's not going to slow down because there's just so many amazing people in this, this community that just wants to give. And there's no secrets, just give and pour, because the stronger, they become, the stronger we become, and really, makes what we're building even more valuable.
Yeah. And just so much credit goes to you, John, because, sometimes you're not always that forward facing person, but you're probably the smartest guy in the room, right? Your observations, the way you look at things and read what's going on are, incredibly thoughtful and thought out and accurate. And I just, you and I, our heart is coaching and education and helping people. That's what gets me out of bed. I like to see lives changed. And that's how you do that, is by influencing and just helping people be better people. And if it wasn't, for people like you who are out there just, constantly doing the work and spreading the knowledge like you do with, with expert mentors. I mean, that is, I'm so proud and excited that, you continue, to do, this is the grind. I mean, you actually, you're doing the grind and so many people benefit from the hard work that you put into the production of these shows and the content and just the way you think. You're one of the smartest guys I know. So
means a lot coming from you. I appreciate that.
Lots of props, my man.
I appreciate that. So give just kind of as we kind of wind things down, you're, like I said, I mean, nobody has the crystal ball. However, your crystal ball is typically on point. Kind of what are you seeing, for agents to be thinking about, we're at halfway point of the year, kind of thinking out how, to be thinking, moving into the end of the year, moving into the new, into 24, kind of where do they need to kind of keep their mindset, keep their activities? Like you said, the only thing that's important is what you're doing yourself daily. Where do they need to keep their mind? Where do they need to keep their focus moving into the future?
Yeah, that's a great question. Well, we always want to be able to kind of know where the puck is headed. The Fed is going to do what it needs to do to really get us in a recession. It's not happy, with, recession, with inflation rather still, being where it is. It's going to have more of an impact on the housing market. But the reality is that, guys, it's just like, imagine if you owned a toll road and the government was changing the speed limit on the tollway. But our job is we're paid by collecting tolls. Every time there's a transaction done, we get paid. Okay. But it doesn't really matter how fast cars are going, or, there's going to be more cars one year than there are the next. But one thing you can be sure of, there's going to be cars on that tollway, and you're still going to be making money. And so you've got to get past the headlines and past the sensationalism. I mean, I read this Newsweek had an article. I was on Baton Rouge 107.3. I got called Sunday to do a subject matter expert on their live talk in the morning. And the guy said, we were talking about Airbnbs and revenues were down and it was going to be a crash and it was going to be as big as 2008. This is what I was talking about earlier. If you believe that and you get into the headlines, it's going to get in your head and you're going to create so much uncertainty around you and your business. And that's why I said you've got to stay focused on what you can control. When I learned how to ski, John, the instructor kept telling me, don't focus on the trees. And I'd say, what trees? Boom, I hit a tree because I was looking at the trees, right? So you go where you focus. And if you're focused on all of the side noise and all of it, even the competitors are, I'm worried about LP, all this, wait. If you will just do what you're bloom where you're planted, for crying out loud, do what you're supposed to be doing. And, this stuff will pass. Things are going to change. We may go into a recession. Well, real estate's typically done pretty well in recessions. So what are you worried about? Interest rates will be coming down. I mean, people worry about some of the craziest stuff that they can't control. What they need to be doing is be worried about how they can increase their market share right now. Quit looking at your gross number of deals. Start looking at your market share so you can see how you're doing relative to all these other people that are out there. Because at the end of the day, a rising tide raises all ships. And if you're getting market share right now, you're going to carry that lead forward. And so that's what you need to be focused on.
Love it. Cuz always great connecting. You're just, true gem. And I can't thank you enough for carving out the time, jumping in here and pouring the value that you always do.
Hey, I appreciate the opportunity. I'm going to ask you to return the favor. I'd love to get you back over on Cliff's Notes soon. And I
would be honored. And, for those of you guys listening in, kind of plug what Cliff's Notes is.
Gosh, it's, really, it started out as kind of a real estate coaching show, but it's turned out just to be, now I've got just guests on there that I think are doing something unique and impactful. And they may be from the commercial. I've got Michelle Polly out of Arizona has got the most incredible story you've ever heard. She's going to be on my show tomorrow. She's in commercial in Arizona and Utah. I mean, I just look for people who can try to inspire and give hope to other people who are just not getting their cup filled. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And again, I think it's so hard to get your cup filled every day at a small independent brokerage like we can fill cups here at eXp with the great work that you're doing and what I'm trying to do. And people need that, man. Zig said you can go a week without food, you can go 3 days without water, but you can't go a day without hope. And so that's what I try to deliver to people on Cliff's Notes.
Man, you do. It's fantastic. Where can they catch all the episodes?
It's just the YouTube. It's go to cliffsnotes.youtube. If you go to cliffsnotes.com, you'll learn how to, read books in 5 minutes and that kind of thing. But cliffsnotes.tv
is where you got to go. I love it.
Where you got to see that. But thank you, John. I appreciate the plug there.
Absolutely. Well, appreciate you guys tuning in. Make sure you guys get plugged in with Cliff's Notes. Fantastic. And appreciate you guys. See you guys on the next episode.
Thank you, John. Love you, brother.
Love you.
Yep.